So this is the first episode of the Joyful Life podcast.
Welcome to the show, everyone.
Welcome. I wanted to start with a bit of a story and a question.
All right.
And so this is something that I've never told anybody before. So we're going deep and dark. And I was laughing when I was thinking about this because for those in the audience who don't know, you're a coach, and one of the ways that we first interacted was you were doing some coaching for me, and one of the things you told me in our first session was, and I'm paraphrasing here, but I think it's right, I don't give a shit about your childhood. And
yeah, that sounds about right.
That was
but I think that was followed with but I do deeply care.
Yes, that also sounds right. And so while digging into our pasts is not part of this, I did want to share something from my past, but not as a therapy session, though more as a kickoff to the whole theme of what we're doing here.
Cool.
So when I was a teenager, and without getting way too into it, I had a really wonderful childhood. I had loving family. I was healthy, lived in a safe place. No complaints, right? It was great. So I don't have any deep and buried traumas that we need to uncover here.
That we know of.
Yeah, that's right. But I remember when I was a teenager, just sort of being out in the world, walking around, and not feeling happy. And I remember looking at friends who all had sort of identifiable reasons for not being happy. You know, I had a friend whose father had left. I had one that had, some pretty serious health issues. One whose grandparents had been killed by a drunk driver. Like, this is stuff that had sort of affected them deeply. And I remember having this imaginary conversation where someone would come up to me, some random person on the street would come up to me and say, like, what's your excuse? Like, why aren't you happy? Or what's going on with you? And the answer I always came back to was sort of, I don't have an excuse, but I'm still not happy. And so I wanted to start by asking, this is the Joyful Life project that we're talking about, the Joyful Life podcast. Why is joy and happiness so difficult to find sometimes? I'll just start off with an easy one to work us into this.
Wow. So you'll figure out if you're watching this or when you're watching this that this is unscripted. We're flying from the seat of our pants. So the question is, why is joy and happiness so difficult to find sometimes? Why is it elusive? That's a really good question. And before I get into my version of an answer, whatever that is going to look like, I'm going to throw that back at you and ask you to consider yourself now and look back to that person as a teenager and share what comes up for you. Why would it have been difficult back then?
It's a great coaching answer where you don't actually say anything.
That's right,
and I have to solve my own problems.
That's right.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
I think knowing as the graying, wiser version of myself now, I think there was a lack of acceptance in how I was feeling. So I knew, and in the Joyful Life project we talk about the data versus the drama. I think the data was I wasn't feeling good. Sometimes there was a feeling of like in Buddhism they call it dissatisfactoriness, right? Just something wasn't the way I wanted it to be, and I don't know if I could have. It wasn't that there was something outside that if I'd got it, I would have felt better. Because again, I sort of had what I needed. But there was a sense or a feeling that something was missing or lacking or not right. And looking back now, and I should have done this before I asked the question and I didn't, but looking back now, I think I just spent a lot of time putting my attention on that feeling and less attention on everything that was going well. So basically I fed that mysterious feeling and suffered more than I had to because of it. But I also think that feeling was a lot of the drive, trying to fix that was a lot of the drive that led me in the more interesting directions of my life. I think so. I studied martial arts when I was younger. I moved to Japan. I studied Reiki energy healing. I meditated. Other things.
Did the things, yeah.
Did the things. Studied Buddhism for years. I think it was all an attempt to sort of answer that question of why can't I just be happy more? So yeah, that's what comes up.
Oh, nice. Good work.
Oh, thank you, Coach.
Yeah, I think throw my 2 cents in on that. I think the why it's elusive is I think in some ways we're innocently taught that things like happiness and joy are elusive. They're things that need to be found. They're things that need to be strived for or worked for, that will appear when a way that I often phrase stuff like this is when this, then that.
Right.
So when this changes, or when I have this, or when this environmental aspect is met, then the result of that will be happiness and joy. And I think that conditioning lives in society. I think it lives within the people around us that are trying to be helpful and supportive. Mm-hmm. So even, family members can say something like, or maybe not say something like, but reflect in how they engage with you. What am I trying to say here? I think what I'm trying to get to is that we learn at an early age that happiness and joy are external to us. As a young child, we act a certain way and mommy and daddy look pleased.
Right.
So we have this early connection that joy and happiness are contingent upon something external. So what at a young age is a survival mechanism. Babies look cute because if they didn't look cute, then, well, babies look cute because,
right.
because good things happen when babies look
right.
cute. Right. So I think a lot of why joy and happiness look difficult to see now is because there's a level of conditioning that suggests that those things are contingent upon something external to us. And then I think you hit the nail on the head when you talked about attention, where that was focused on. I don't know if we can expand that a little bit. It's hard to be satisfied. It's hard to be with what is. It's hard. I shouldn't say it's hard. It's in some ways a skill that we have to develop. There's an art, maybe is the right way of saying it. There's an art to being present. There's an art to being here now. And I think the more that we embrace the artistry of here now, and then the reality of it is only ever now, that lends itself to seeing things in a way that doesn't require them to be different. And I think when we don't have to require, when there's no requisition or requirement, when there's no requirement for things to be different, then it's easier to be at peace. And when you're at peace, I think joy and happiness follow quite organically from that. So maybe the short answer is, presence is not something that we're really taught. We're not really taught to be here now.
Right.
And when we're not being here now, we're kind of arguing with the way things are. And when we're arguing with the way things are, wishing for them to be different, let's just say it's impossible to be, at peace, to be happy, to be joyful.
Yeah. Say more about the art of the art that you mentioned.
Yeah, I vacillate here. Is it a skill that we develop? Is it an art? Is it innate? I've been looking in this direction as you have for a long time, and once I started to sense that presence was now, then developing that awareness it's less of a trying to do, or it's less of an order to do, and more of an allowing to happen. And I think that's why the word artistry comes to mind. Mm-hmm. It's you are learning to flex a muscle. You are learning to see things differently, perhaps. And, maybe you could say that's a skill set development, but there's something about that, likens it to learning carpentry or learning martial arts. And I think the pursuit of happiness or the realization of happiness lends itself more to artistry, to bringing something into the world in a way that is easeful rather than by force of will.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's a good question. I'm not sure really specifically why it shows up for me as there's an art to it. There's a it's not something you're constructing. It's not hard and fast. It's a little more ephemeral. It's a little more playful. And I guess the play aspect to me lends itself to artistry, lends itself to creation. Yeah, I don't know.
So
I have to think about that more. It's a good question.
Yeah, one of the things that I've sort of struggled with is when you talk about, not you, but
Mm-hmm.
these sort of teachings like, oh, just be grateful, just be appreciative, or just think about the positive thing. It's not easy to do that when you're stuck looking in the other direction, and the teachings. So from someone who's in that position of like, whether I am really having a terrible day or I am having this event in my life that is causing me suffering or whatever it is, I lost my job, I have a health issue,
Mm-hmm.
partner, kid, whatever's going on, telling that person, oh, it should be easy and playful, just look in the other direction and everything's fine.
Right.
It doesn't, when
Right.
you're in that position, it doesn't, or in that situation, it doesn't feel like that's enough of an answer. And what helped for me was actually less of what you were saying and more of like, this is kind of a battle.
Mm-hmm.
Like I am battling myself. Like my mind is pulling me in one direction, and my higher mind, or there's two minds in there, right? There's the one that's just doing whatever it wants,
Yeah.
and then there's
Yeah.
the me
Yeah.
back there being like, hey, stop it. There is a challenge, there is a struggle going on there over who gets to win, it feels like. And
Right.
I think you can get to a point once you've done it enough, once you sort of understand the game you're playing, where it does become playful, like, oh, there he goes again, worrying about nothing,
Mm-hmm.
or look at him complain about the snow. Like, why is he so upset about that? Well, yeah, it's winter, it's gonna snow. He's losing his mind over it. It becomes kind of funny and playful.
Yeah.
And that's when I think sort of the, artistry or playfulness, whatever word you want to use, comes into it. But at the beginning, it really does feel like there is more of a fight going on. And I'm curious if you always call me out on the language I use, because sometimes words can inject problems that don't need to be there if you use other words. So
Right.
I'm curious how you hear that, and feel free to tear that apart if
No.
if we should stick with playfulness.
No, I think we should stick with playfulness. I think we should ultimately aspire to not taking it all so seriously. Having said that, I like the way that you phrased that the artistry of it, or the allowing of it, or whatever word we use that describes the ease of it, does come with practice.
Mm.
I had an experience this morning driving here, and I was driving, and I was in a pretty grumpy mood, and I've got a lot on my plate right now, and it's cold out, and I could feel that tension between my personal thinking and the larger part of me, which at one point I noticed was kind of just laughing at me while I was struggling along driving. So as a starting point, what I did do is sort of walk myself through some of the stuff we do in the JLP, and so I think that having a template or some parameters that can guide someone in a good direction or when they're struggling is helpful.
Mm.
I think being rigid about that can be challenging, because where your attention lands, then the trap that often surfaces there is, now I'm paying attention to what I don't want.
Right.
Right. So I think there is, even in the practice of there is an artistry to it. There's something that lends itself to a light touch. So I'm coming in this morning and I'm feeling pretty grumpy about the whole thing. And okay, what is there to acknowledge about this moment? Well, I looked around and sure enough, it's a bright blue sky. Sure enough, it's pretty out, the snow. It all looks nice, and I'm in my truck, which is warm. Okay, excellent. So just having that not as a signpost, but having that as I don't want to say formula. I'm trying to stay away from being too rigid about it, but having a little bit of structure at the beginning when you're experiencing that the desire for a different feeling, having a bit of structure there is probably helpful, right? We can use that as a way to soften our attention, as I did this morning. I said, what is there to acknowledge? Well, it's pretty nice outside. I could feel, oh yeah, it's pretty nice outside. Okay. What am I appreciating? What am I appreciative of? And, we were driving, you were messaging. I was like, oh, the podcast, really excited about it. That's cool. I can appreciate that. And my wife was messaging me with emojis saying, we got this, and sending me smiley faces and things like that. It's like, okay. And another layer of caught up in the shitstorm of my thinking kind of melted away. So as much as I'm sort of loath to talk about techniques and things of that nature, I feel like there's a place for it. There is there's a balance to be struck between it's just your thought and okay, maybe there are some things that we can do that would help someone hit the ground, if not running, but at least walking in the right direction.
Right.
So I'm not sure that really answers that question, but I can certainly, to come back to what you're saying about it being a battle, that certainly feels true in my life. More so when I was younger, when I didn't have a framework for any of this, right? It was like, yeah, it felt like a struggle. And maybe that's the best word for it. And as I've, deepened my understanding of presence, or whatever we want to call it, it's a little easier. The whole thing is a little gentler.
Right.
I would never, it's not a battle anymore. It's just it's an awareness, and it's a noticing. Right.
Yeah.
And the key is that when I notice now, there's no panic around it. I just, like driving in this morning, okay, I don't feel good. Okay, let's take a step back from this. There's nothing to solve here. I'm not afraid anymore. And I think this might be a key, might be helpful. One of the things that I think is critical in a movement towards joy and happiness is coming to an understanding that our feelings are not a problem. Good, bad, or otherwise, what we feel is not a problem. It's just information, right? And if we can separate ourselves from the information that we get via our feelings, then that's a really good step towards a different outcome or a different feeling.
Right. So I think, that's great. I think I want to talk about feelings, but first I think for people that might be new to us and what you're teaching and the Joyful Life Project, just to take a quick pause. So when Mike talks about techniques, in the Joyful Life Project that he teaches, there are 6 experiments that we go through, and each experiment is sort of a way of shifting your thinking. So Mike mentioned acknowledging. We talked about the data and the drama. So, okay, it is cold out is the data. It's a miserable day is the drama, right? That's what I'm injecting into it. We talk about attention and appreciation, and there's some others. So when Mike talks about techniques, what he's talking about is applying those experiments to a specific situation. And what you were saying about there's sort of, at the beginning, there's like, you're never teaching the rigidity. It's never like, here's the 6-step process to
absolutely.
X. It's never anything like that. It's more, the way I took it anyway, it's more tools in the toolbox. And okay, for a given situation, I'm not feeling good, or there's a challenge in front of me. Which tool can I pull out to slightly massage or adjust my thinking and my attention to feel better about it? Right? Would you say, is that Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think so. The experiments came about through my own experience, right? I spent months on each one, really dedicating myself to seeing how these experiments would be impactful, and you know they are tools in a toolbox. You know that cliche, but you know if the only thing you have is a hammer, then everything looks like a nail. Well, these are meant to be mixed and matched, right? You know, this morning, as I was coming in again, the first thing that popped into my mind was, okay, well, what is there to acknowledge here? I'm driving and I'm feeling grumpy. What is there to acknowledge? Well, if I look around, that's a pretty nice day, and I'm driving in the truck and it's warm, and you know, just having something to bring to mind that creates a bit of space between the feeling that you're worried about feeling. Ultimately there's nothing to be worried about, but we don't always remember that. So the experiment sort of came about as ways to test for impact, but also to you know, we can reach into the toolbox and okay, in this moment, what is there to acknowledge? In this moment, what might there be to appreciate? In this moment, you know, how am I asking for something? What am I allowing to come to me? What action could I be taking? So there's all these ways of taking the experiments from the Joyful Life Project and applying them in real world situations. And you know, I did it a few weeks ago. I was on a walk, and it was a cold, blustery day, and I found myself sort of caught up in my thinking, and I just quickly walked myself through the 6. Lo and behold, I remembered that it's a beautiful day, and I'm out here with my dog, and I'm actually dressed warmly and appropriately. I wasn't, you know, it wasn't 11 o'clock at night with no food, no water. I was stuck in the dark somewhere. So that the experiments are more tools in a toolbox. I like there's something that we can come back and anchor with, or maybe anchor through, right? I think what they do is they bring us back to the present moment in their own way. Each one of them brings us back to what's present now, and whether that's, you know, what am I paying attention to me that serves me or not? What could I pay attention to that might serve me better? They just offer the opportunity, I shouldn't say just, they offer the opportunity to kind of refocus oneself or represence oneself, right? Oh yeah, to see sort of the distinction between what is and what I'm making up. And of course, what we typically suffer is what we're making up, right? Not to say that, you know, someone discovers that they have a cancer diagnosis, okay, in that moment, there's going to be some reaction to that, obviously, and many would call that suffering. Well, if that hasn't changed 3 months from now, and maybe cancer isn't the best example. I'd say I fall off a ladder and I break my leg. Well, in that moment, I broke my leg. But if 3 months from now, I'm still terrified of ladders, well, it's not the moment that's the problem anymore, right? And I think that does extend to cancer diagnoses. But for the sake of simplicity, maybe, you know, falling off a ladder is a better starting place.
Right.
You know, that what we struggle with is not the moment itself, it's the creation that comes from an attachment to our personal thinking.
Yeah,
it's a story.
Yeah, I was thinking like a situation where you're angry is an easy one, because like the thing that made you angry was a moment in time.
Yeah.
That you're still angry about it an hour or 2 weeks or 10 years later. The moment has passed. You're just doing it to yourself now, and that's a hard thing to accept.
Well, and I think that sort of loops us back nicely to your first question, which is, you know, why is peace and happiness so elusive sometimes? Geez, I lost my train of thought there. I guess that happens too, doesn't it? Bring us back to the question, Evan.
My question? Why is happiness and joy?
No, I had that part. It's the next part, the part you just finished with.
Oh, I was talking about how, like, using anger as an example of how we keep feeding it, and that's hard. It's hard to accept that we are the ones who are sort of adding fuel to whatever's upsetting us when the moment has passed.
So thank you. The thing I was going to add there was the personal responsibility, right? So what keeps us away from joy and happiness is acknowledging that we're responsible for it. Right? And it's a big deal when you're at some point. My belief is that at some point we all see this, you know, Maybe some of us see it on our deathbeds. Maybe some of us see it a little bit earlier. Maybe some of us never have this struggle and they see it from childhood on. But when we start to develop an awareness that we're actually responsible for how we feel, there is a lot of freedom that comes with that. And I think that is a bridge. So that acknowledgement of our responsibility for our feelings, and we'll keep it sort of simple like that. But when we acknowledge that, when we take personal responsibility for how we feel, that liberation, at least in my experience, lent itself to a generally more happy and joyful life. So when I looked in the mirror and went, crap, it's me. It's my personal thing. And this is all happening in innocence. There's nothing wrong with any of this. But, the first time you kind of get a glimmer of, damn, I did that.
Say, for people that might be unsure of what we mean by that, can you just elaborate on that whole idea or what that experience is like?
Yes. I can speak about my personal experience a little bit. Is that what you're sort of angling towards, or?
Well, when I first heard the idea, the first time someone, I don't know if it was you or someone else, the first time someone suggested that all of my problems are, or all of my, maybe not problems, all of my suffering
Right.
is my fault, or my responsibility.
Yeah.
My immediate reaction was, but the whole world is
No, it's not.
is getting in my way. Right? Yeah. There's
Yeah.
there's lots of stuff going on outside that is making me not have a good time right now. What are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
That it's all me.
Yeah, it's tough to take personal responsibility for what we make of our own thinking.
Right.
Right. Like, I'm thinking what I'm thinking. You're not imposing my thinking on me. I'm thinking what I'm thinking, and the meaning that I make of that is me making meaning of that. So I can look at the world as it is now, and in this day and age, there's a lot of people pointing in one very specific area or in one very specific direction for all of their suffering and all of their struggles. And I guess my contention there would be, or my invitation would be, to wonder about whether or not that is really true in your own lived experience, right? Well, something is happening in the world right now. That thing that's happening in the world right now that you believe is the cause of your suffering, well, is it ever not the cause of your suffering? Are you ever not aware that that thing is causing you suffering? And if there is a period of time when you're not aware that that thing is causing the suffering, then maybe it's not that thing that's causing the suffering. And again, to sort of restate this idea that what we suffer is really our personal thinking. What we suffer is our wish for things to be different. And that's innocent and maybe even noble, but it doesn't serve. I can wish for things to be different, and really what makes it different for me is the attachment to the thinking that I have around it. So if I ease off on, the commitment to my beliefs about how I want things to be, I can just be with what's happening without attaching that I need it to be different. And what I've noticed, lo and behold, when I loosen that attachment to wanting things to be different, the way that I see things become different. So I don't have to, I guess the long and the short of it is that I don't have to change the world in order for the world to change. I arguably can't change the world, but I can change how I interact with my thinking about the world. I can change how I see the world, and as I change the lenses, if you will, that I look through, then the world changes. So this, the ease with which we point to an external reason for our feelings is innocently gleaned. And I guess the invitation is, when you look deep inside yourself, do you really think that your bad mood is caused by the person that just cut you off in traffic, is that really what's causing your bad mood? And I think most of the time when you press people, until they come up with the next thing that's causing their challenge, is that most people understand that it's just me. Most people, when you talk to them one to one, it's like, well, where's your experience of life coming from? Oh, it's coming from me. I'm creating it. Okay, let that be what's actually happening, right? Try to remember that when it really looks like it's out there. And I think a lot of that is just how we're programmed, right? We have these big brains that want to solve for things. So we have a feeling within us that we don't like, and the brain goes, oh, let me at it. I'll figure this out for you. It's the bank account. It's the weather. It's the political situation in the South. We're in Canada. There's a hint. So the brain is really good at trying to help us out. But it may be the wrong tool for the job, right? Because what it's going to do is, in its desire, we'll call it that, in the ego, I don't want to get into that language, but in our desire to make ourselves feel better and explain why we're feeling the way that we are, and the hope that comes with that explanation of feeling better, we naturally point outside of us. We're looking outside of us all the time. So to me, it's a very natural phenomenon that we look to explain our feelings by looking out into the world. And that's where the catch is. Right? It looks that way. It looks like my experience of Evan is coming through from him over there to me here, but that's not really what's happening. And I think when we take a moment and really sit with that, oh yeah, I am actually creating it. I am actually making it up. And that, the acknowledgement of that, just, it's a game changer, right? So again, circling back for the sort of second time to that, what gets in the way of a more joyful and happy experience of life? It's believing that, that happiness, that which we want so desperately, in most cases we really want it desperately, is something external to us. It's not external to us. And, happiness, as cliche as it sounds, is an inside job. And now I'm rambling a little bit, so back over to you, man.
Yeah, no, I think you explained that really well, and I thought it might be helpful to share some examples. I always, whenever we talk about these
the examples,
ideas, let's make it real. Let's realize this. So I'll share one of mine, and I'll
sure.
Maybe while I'm talking, you can think of something to share. And I shared this in the recordings we did for the Joyful Life program that we've got in the course, but I'll share it again more slowly, or more briefly. So when I was fired from my job a couple of years ago, and that was something that happened to me, right? I was here, I was doing a thing, everything was fine, I was happy, and then this thing happened to me, and my instinct was to resist it, right? It was like, this is unfair, decisions were made, without all the information, blah, 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 just all these stories, then there was the stress of, what am I going to do now? I've got a family, all of these things. And the negativity of that experience was, or the story that I was telling myself about why that was such a negative experience was all because what was coming from outside. This thing happened to me, and now I'm suffering because of that thing. And using the experiments that thankfully I had gone through before this had happened, was sort of what you were saying about, I don't need to add a story to this. I can acknowledge what happened. So the data, I got fired. The drama, the injustice of it all, the stress that it was going to cause for myself, my family, all that was all drama, and I didn't have to pay attention to it. And then sort of attention, speaking of that, where can I put my attention? Well, I can focus on the negativity and all of that. That's not going to help. So where can I put my attention? I can put my attention on the fact that, we're not going to be losing the house tomorrow. We can afford groceries for a while. Like, I still have a skill set that I can go find another job. So I can put my attention on those things. And then the last, I won't go through all of them, but like appreciation. Well, I can appreciate, that I had a great time at this company. I learned a lot of skills. I made good relationships. I can appreciate that, I've got the support of my wife that, I don't have to feel terrible about this. Nobody's looking at me saying you're a bad person, you're a failure.
Right.
So that was, while the event happening to me was coming from the outside, that was a really helpful experience to just feel all of those feelings as they were happening without resistance to them. And what I found was, through feeling those feelings, like, whatever I'm going to feel upset, I'm going to feel scared, I'm going to feel maybe excited that something new is coming. There's good ones and bad, good feeling ones and bad feeling ones. I'm just going to feel all of those things. And as they come in, I'm not going to fight them. And then the reality of the situation is, okay, now I need a plan, I need next steps. But once you've done that sort of processing and accepting, and once I'm not continuing to catastrophize about the event, the place that I make those decisions from, that's when the brain is maybe good. I'm like, okay, what should we do next? Let's figure it out. The brain's good at that.
Yeah, great for planning.
So that was, hopefully that's helpful for people as an example of how to apply some of what you're saying. What's an example of yours?
Yeah, I don't know. I was trying to listen to what you're saying. I don't even know. I mean, there's there's so many. It's like it's an ongoing thing now, right? So I guess the freshest one is just the example of this morning driving in here, to come and meet you. Some of the thinking that I had around that was, oh God, I'm driving in again. Oh, my gas tank is almost empty. It's saying that I've got 30 kilometers left. Am I going to make it? Can I trust my gas tank? There's and then again, it's cold. It's miserable. Ontario is going to be sitting like minus 50. So just this, I'll speak in more general terms. It's just so easy to notice thinking and make it mean something. And, as you were talking, one of my favorite Sid Banks quotes, maybe my favorite Sid Banks quote comes to mind, which is, if the only thing people learned was to not fear their experience, that alone would change the world. So anytime we're feeling something that doesn't feel good, it's not problematic. I made it problematic this morning when I was driving in here, and my honey is messaging me with emojis, and it's like, oh, it feels really nice, but I'm really committed to feeling like shit right now. So I'm gonna, I can feel that sort of, hey, I can feel the other part of me kind of laughing at me. Doing that, are you? Yes, I'm doing this right now, and I'm going to keep doing it for a little bit longer. But I can feel that I don't know, that calling towards, okay, dude, enough now. So it's easy and it's innocent to get caught up in our thinking. It happens all the time, and when we don't take it so seriously, when we're a little bit more gentle, it doesn't last as long. It was what I noticed this morning, and I know that I'm not really giving an example here, but what I noticed this morning is how I could feel the back and forth of it. I could feel myself looking out and, oh wow, it's beautiful out here. It's so beautiful out here, and it's so nice and toasty in the truck. Yeah, but I want to feel miserable still for a little bit long. And I could feel that going back and forth. Right. And it's just like, it's okay for that to happen. I think when we don't identify ourselves with our feelings, when we start to see that, my feelings can't actually hurt me. They're just feelings. I can lean into, like this morning, I was kind of leaning into my self-created misery for a while because I just want to be miserable a little bit longer here. Right. It's okay, higher self, piss off. I'm going to be angry for a little bit. And then I think that's sort of what I was referring to earlier in a way, talk about artistry, talk about being gentle, talk about I haven't used this language, but make a game of it, make it fun. Okay, it's not that big. Yeah, I'm feeling miserable right now. Okay. So I'm getting something from that. I'm getting to be miserable.
Right.
And for a split, that kind of makes me feel good because I get to vent a little bit. I get to shake my fist at the weather that I can't do anything about, that eventually I will come back to and be like, oh, okay. So, tell you, for whatever reason, I can't come up with a specific example right now.
That's a specific one? Right.
Yeah, I guess that's fairly specific. What I'm trying to point to through it is that this fluctuation between being in our thinking and being aware of our thinking happens all the time. And the more awareness you bring to it, the less trapped we become by it, the less we think there's something to do about it. I'm feeling like, so my wife and I used to play this game, and we still do. When we first got into a relationship about 10 years ago, we made the decision to not ask each other what's wrong. Right.
Okay.
So you can kind of tell when someone's off, and even there, well, are you making up a story about them being off? And maybe that's another podcast topic. But we decided to make a game out of, not asking what's wrong. So that made it really okay to be miserable. Right? Yeah, I'm just miserable right now. I'm just grumpy. I'm just caught up in my bullshit. What's wrong? Well, nothing's wrong. I'm just caught up in my bullshit.
Right.
I'm just caught up in my thinking. Yeah, but what's wrong? Nothing. There's nothing to solve here. And I think that's a powerful realization to come to. So this morning I felt grumpy. There was no solving it. There was just kind of like, okay, yeah, I'm grumpy. I'm doing it. And I can look here and I can look, I can distract myself. I can allow my attention to wander to something else. And in that wandering, in that shift in attention, I'm living in a completely different experience.
Right.
Right. And that, being aware of that ebb and flow, that looking over here is a different creation, looking over here is a different creation, and looking through different lenses is actually part of the creative process. And sometimes those lenses, for whatever reason, are going to be grumpy. Yeah, I'm just feeling grumpy today. So with my wife and I, with my honey, not having to worry about explaining that, but just being, yeah, I'm just feeling off right now, honey. Oh, okay.
Right.
No problem. Nothing to be done here. Okay. Well, how long do you plan on feeling off?
Right.
I don't know yet. Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure. I'll try another 40 seconds and see where we're at then. But yeah, I think what we're really sort of, both pointing at is that we feel what we feel when we feel it, and that's okay. And if there's a feeling that you don't like, one of the realizations that I've had is that feeling that you're feeling that you don't like is not a condemnation. It doesn't mean anything about you. It means something about what you're paying attention to. And that's it. That's all there is to that. Well, I shouldn't say that as if it's a truth. I think it's a truth. But yeah, it's, feeling what we feel is part of the experience. And I guess where that leads to is the acknowledgement of choice. We can't control what comes into our thinking. We don't know what's going to show up next. I do believe that we have some choice. I know that we have choice in what we attend to and how long we maintain our attention on this thing that doesn't serve us.
Right.
And that's a huge, for me, that was a massive thing to see. It's like, firstly, it's oh shit, I'm making it up. Really, it's me. I've been doing this to myself. So when I was younger, I really identified, I could see myself in the story of not really being happy. It's like, oh, wow. So when I sort of saw through this, it's like, oh crap, all of those years, I was doing that to myself.
Right.
Wow. That was rough at first, man. Like, oh, because it removes the victim card. Right? All of a sudden you can't point at, mom or dad or the weather or this or that, or
right.
There's no victim anymore. Oh, really? I'm creating it all the time? It's just me? Anyway, I digress a little bit there, I think, but that's going to happen if these, when these podcasts keep going, there will be digressions, I think.
No, I think that's good. I think the idea of, you phrased it before as feelings as a GPS. I think that would be a great topic to cover for our next one, because that's a whole thing on itself.
Yeah, it's huge.
If we were going to wrap this one up now-ish, what can people take away as what you were saying at the end there? Just your driving example is such a good one, because it's such a small thing that happens all the time. Like every day we all have nonsense going on. It doesn't have to be a huge life event. What can people take away as something to play with in that vein? So what I was thinking was sort of for anyone who's listening to this, as you go about your day or your week, whatever, if you can notice when your mind is doing that to you, when your mind is telling you stories, or you notice yourself feeling a way that you don't like, what's something that people can do to sort of play with what we're talking about?
Yeah, good question. Your feelings can't hurt you. And I think, I use this example sometimes, there's no tiger in the room. Chances are there's no immediate threat to your life or the livelihood of you or others or loved ones, whatever. There's no tiger in the room. So whatever you're feeling right now, there's no tiger there. There's no imminent threat. Most of the time, there's no imminent threat. There's really probably nothing that's that bad. So the takeaway, I think, is that, or a takeaway might be for people to play with, is that to lean into the idea that your feelings can't actually hurt you. They're just feelings, and we'll talk about the GPS aspect of that next time. But I think for now, a takeaway that I would love for people to have is just that what you're feeling is just what you're feeling, and with less attention it'll pass faster, right? We don't necessarily need to do anything because we feel bad. You can just feel bad and be okay with feeling bad. We never. I've been asking this question for a few years now, and maybe this will be a good place to finish. Have you ever worried about feeling good? Well, right. No, you've never worried. Why am I feeling so good right now? I don't understand. Why is so if we can be sort of ambivalent towards I'm feeling good, and I shouldn't say it like that. If we can just accept feeling good, yeah, why do you feel good? I don't know, man. I just feel good right now. Awesome. Hey, why do you feel bad? I don't know. I'm just feeling bad right now. If we can treat those things as, and again, we'll get into this next time, but if we can treat both of those as information rather than commentaries on what we're doing right or wrong at any given moment, that might be a nice takeaway.
Fantastic. I love that.
Cool.
So yeah, we'll invite all of you as you're going about your day, week, whatever, notice what you're feeling. And like Mike said, when it's a good feeling, you're probably not thinking about it too much, but when it's...
Enjoy it.
Yeah, enjoy it. Yeah, right. When it's a negative or something that doesn't feel good, try to enjoy it. Right, as well. Just feel it. Feel that feeling like, ooh, wow, I really feel awful right now.
Yeah,
neat.
That's right. Really commit. You're gonna feel bad. Really commit to feeling bad. Just don't take it out on anyone else because it's not them.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Cool.
All right.
Woo-hoo.
So play with that, everyone.
All right.
Episode 1 done.
Episode 1 done.
See everyone on the next one.
See you in the funny pages. All right. Cool.